Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to episode 3 of this really awesome series that we're doing. Not just talking about building spoken fluency in a foreign language, we're doing it in real time as we follow my personal journey going from being an anxious stumbler to a confident, clear speaker of Mandarin Chinese. Now, in episode 2, I gave a detailed but still broad overview of one of the methods we're going to be using in this series. And this one is a really robust, holistic method because it's more of a project that you iterate on, and one iteration could take a week or 2 weeks, but it works all of your core language skills. And I love how the cherry on top, the final kick, is some serious progress with our spoken fluency. So if you haven't seen that episode, check it out, because today I'm going to really be focusing in on one particular step, which is all about writing. And I have so much just amazing value to share with you, so I don't want to waste any time. We're going to get straight into this. But before we do, I have one small thing that may shock some of you. There we go. Yes, I know. Normally, I'm a coffee drinker. I love having coffee on the channel. It's a thing that we do together, but it's a bit later in the day. I'm in a tea mood. I'm gonna be writing. It's cold outside. I've got a lovely rooibos tea that actually has rhubarb in it, and it is absolutely splendid. So let's have a sip of tea, and then we'll jump in. That's hot. That is very hot. Oh, but it's good. Okay, so let's grab our laptop and let's talk about what we're gonna do today. One of the core things that I really want to get across, if I can, in this video is not just to sort of walk through the process of writing a post together, but I really want to get across how writing is so incredibly valuable, and especially for developing our spoken fluency. And as I said in the previous video, I really do think that writing is perhaps the most undervalued, under-practiced tool that we have for learning languages. So let's take a look at my screen. And so what we can see here is the main dashboard of Journaly. This is the My Feed page. This is where you can find posts from other users. So we wanted to search for Mandarin Chinese posts. Here they are. And you can see these are all getting feedback. Even the most recent one, 42 comments. But what we're going to do is go into my posts, and this is the post that contains the transcript that I made for this particular episode of the Inspire Mandarin podcast. So as I discussed before, I chose an episode that was at a really solid, appropriate listening comprehension level for me. It was very challenging, but not impossible. Now, I got through it. I posted it on Journaly. As you can see down here, these are some of the many comments that I got from lots of really kind people in the community. Really helpful. Some of them have now become outdated because I did go through and actually make the corrections. So this transcript should be more or less correct. Journaly will try to preserve the comments so that you can see right here my original mistake. But in some cases, if the sentence changes too much, then they get put into the outdated section here. So what I'm going to do now is put this on the left side of the screen. And in a new tab, I'm going to open the new post page and have that over here on the right. And what we're going to do is write a post. And we're going to very specifically write about the same topic of the podcast episode that we transcribed. So in my case, the episode I chose was all about building habits, right? And myself, I've been speaking on the channel about how I recently moved across the world back home to the UK, and it was very disruptive because my entire life changed, and I found myself where all my habits were just gone. My routine was gone. And I, wanted to build new habits, new rituals, build a routine. So I think it's a really ideal opportunity for me to write about something that is relevant to me right now in my life, but I can base it as much as possible off of this transcript that I have. And this is helpful for many reasons. The first of which is that it makes it nice and simple, right? We have a single reference that we're going to try to use as much as possible, because otherwise the possibilities are infinite, right? What are we going to go and find and stuff? This is a single reference that we know really well because we've transcribed it, we've studied it, we've pulled all the new words out. In my case, I flashcarded them as well, which has really helped me to become very familiar with the contents of this podcast episode. And I have it written down, so it's very easy to reference, to pull things from. I know that the words in here are the right ones, right? This is a native speaker. I know they've chosen natural constructions, natural sentences, idioms, really good sort of grammatical constructions. There's so much I can pull, but it's all in one place, so it's nice and simple. Now, the other thing that's great about this is it helps me to really internalize all those new words and phrases I've learned. Yes, I flashcarded them, but for me, when I'm flashcarding, it's really just about getting more familiar with them. I now know pretty well all the different words. I've had to actively recall them, but it's not about mastering them. That happens now, well, really never happens, but that certainly starts to happen more now that I'm going to be actively using them in language that I am creating myself. So let's jump into this, and I'm going to demonstrate a lot of things here why I think that writing is really going to help us to bridge the gap between this stage where when we go to speak, it's so hard. We just feel so nervous and anxious. We stumble. It's hard to describe, but this is going to help a lot. So right away, let's talk about the title. So I was thinking that for my post, I would call it Building New Habits. Now, again, if it weren't for this podcast, I would have no clue how to say build a habit, because if I search for the word build, I have no idea if that's going to give me the correct word for the context of a habit, right? Maybe building a building might be a different word, but I know because of this podcast that the word for to build in this case is 建立, right? And I know the word for habit is 习惯. So 建立习惯 means to build habits. But I want to say build new habits, and this is where we get to our very first interesting question. Now, the word for new is 新, but I actually don't know. I don't know, should it be 建立新的习惯? 新的, this the in the middle? Or is it okay to just say 新习惯? Now, if you're not learning Chinese, this doesn't matter. The details are not important. The point is that I've arrived at a place where there are two ways I think I might be able to say this. I'm not sure which one is more natural or correct even. However, again, because I transcribed this podcast, I know the content really well. So if I come over here and I search for 习惯, right? Let's see, right here. So this sentence here, she says 建立好习惯. Now that is really interesting because 好 means good. So this sentence means to build good habits. And I can see here that she did not include the de. She just said 好习惯. So I'm going to assume, based on that I can just say 建立新习惯. So again, if you're not learning Chinese, that's not important. The point is that already I'm able to reference the contents of that episode, the transcript, to inform what I'm now producing, and it gives me a better chance of being correct. So let's really quickly move along here because there's a lot more I want to show you. Let's just call this, let's say we're writing about habits, and maybe let's go to lifestyle, not super important. And then I have an image I got from Unsplash. It's copyright free, and it's just a couple of books about habits. So let's move on to the actual content of the post. Now, I'm thinking that I'm gonna talk about how I just moved back to the UK. And so when I start thinking about that sentence, I immediately have some questions, and pay attention here, this is really important. So, I know the word for moving is ban, right? And I've seen that in somewhere, I don't even know where I saw it, but I know that that's a word I could use. But as soon as I start talking about moving back to the UK, moving home, I have questions because, for example, I don't know, I could say 我最近, that means recently,我最近搬到. Now, 到 means to arrive. Oftentimes it gets added to words. I'm guessing here, it could be 最近搬到, maybe 英国了. Now, I have no clue, and this is all happening in real time. I have no idea. I don't know whether it is ban dao. It could, maybe dao doesn't make sense here. I think the le on the end, think it makes sense, like it happened, but I don't know for sure whether that's the correct placement or whether it makes sense at all. Maybe it should be ban dao le. But I think this makes sense, but I'm not entirely sure. So already we have a few questions that I'm not sure about. And this is so crucial. Please, please, if anything, pay attention to this. I believe that this is exactly why I can't speak Mandarin very well to a person right now. It's because when I go to speak to someone, this exact dialogue, this internal dialogue, is what happens. But in a spoken context, I don't have time to say, let me see, would it be this, would it be that, would that make sense? I'm not really sure about this. And so we panic, we freeze, we stumble, and then the next thing you know, we lose our confidence, the person we're speaking to loses confidence, and this can lead to a negative experience. And so that's why writing a post here, I think, is so helpful. The first thing it does is that it really does replicate that same situation where you now have to figure out how to express something, how to explain something, how to produce the correct language, and you're faced with that internal fear. What if I'm wrong? What if I don't know the right words? Even if I do know the words, what if I don't know the correct way to form the sentence? And I think this is so helpful that we can encounter that situation in a much calmer context where we not only have time, right? We have time to figure this out. We have time to look at other resources and tools. We have this beautiful transcript that we know is correct and we can reference that, and it's already about the same topic. So there's a good chance it's going to contain things that can help us. Maybe not in every case. And that's why I may go to tools like Google Translate in this other tab. Now, Google Translate is not going to be perfect, but it can be useful for situations when maybe I'm not sure about the syntax. Sometimes just having something like Google Translate, even just to sort of give you a clue into how you might sort of structure a sentence, that can be really helpful. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and write the rest of this post. This will probably take me quite a while. Thankfully, I have enough tea for 2 cups, so that should do me. And let's just see what happens. But I predict I'm going to encounter a lot of these situations. And I'll come back to you afterwards and we'll sort of discuss. Okay, so that was incredible. I would say that took me around about 45 minutes or so, I think. And as you can see, I didn't necessarily write a whole lot, but that was an incredible experience for me. It was basically just more of what we saw in the first sort of sentence, right? It was a continual process of me coming up with a sentence, something I want to express. A lot of times having a rough idea and just being very unsure of myself about whether I'm able to form the sentence correctly. There were a lot of vocabulary challenges. Most of the time, I was able to use a combination of my dictionary app and Google Translate to very often at least have a good guess. We'll find out in the corrections, and to be honest, that's one of the most helpful things about having corrections on Journaly, is people will come in and they'll say, you know, this is not the correct word for this context, things like that. There was one word that I actually struggled to find a translation I felt confident with, which was routine. So on the screen here, you'll see that in a couple cases, I just wrote the word routine, because Surprisingly, as I was looking through the dictionary, I saw so many different results for the word routine, but a lot of times looking at the example sentences and looking at the other descriptions, I just wasn't sure which one was correct. So in that case, I just wrote the word in English, and I'm sure somebody will comment and let me know. But the thing I want to leave you with today is that not only do I think that these challenges that I've experienced over and over again while writing this post, they are the same challenges that I think stop us from successfully speaking when we talk to a human being and we don't have any time to really process things. But something really important, equally as important, happened to me while writing this post. It's that I actually realized as I was doing this, I can form these sentences. As I kind of got going, I'm like, I can actually kind of do this. And even if a lot of these sentences might not be correct, I'm sure they're probably understandable. And maybe I'm wrong, but like, as I was going through, I will say that even after just this first post, I mean, I still feel nervous, I still feel anxious, but I do actually feel a little bit more confident now that you can do this. You can actually, you can get these things out. You can express yourself, but I definitely need more practice. And so I do believe that that's part of why this writing process can be so helpful in just developing enough confidence in ourselves and in getting enough practice at expressing ourselves to take that to those first conversations. Now, in the case of this method that we're doing, as I have described, the nice thing is that my first Mandarin Chinese conversation, well, it'll be my second one ever. That's gonna be happening for me in a few days from now. When I go into that conversation, we're gonna discuss this topic. So I come in knowing that I've already thought through some of these things. I've already gotten corrections on my Journaly post by then, hopefully. I already figured out what is the correct word for this and that. So I get to really focus in on practicing expressing myself in Mandarin Chinese. And I'm not gonna be as impeded by these mental questions. But let's not kid ourselves. That's gonna happen. I'm gonna be worried. I'm gonna panic. I'm not gonna have a script, so I'm still gonna, say things that I don't know how to say, but I feel better coming in with this sort of toolbox with me. And then of course, after doing this a few times, that's when I'll start to challenge myself even more and have more spontaneous conversations where there is no preparation. But I hope that this makes sense. I hope that you feel inspired to try this. I may, go through and edit this post. I might write a second one because I do think that there's still a lot of rich value in my transcript that I haven't really fully utilized in my post yet. So I may well go and actually make this a bit longer. I might, write a second one, but I'm really happy with this and I would love to hear your thoughts and I would love to see some of you writing on Journaly if you're interested. It's a really great place to meet people that are like-minded, get feedback on your writing. But regardless of whether you use Journaly, a notepad, or any other app, I think writing is so useful for developing your spoken fluency. And with that, I will leave you and look forward to seeing you in the next video on this channel.